Do you believe that Jo is alive?
I've got to believe that she's alive. She had too much life in her. If it turns out that she isn't, I still want her back. I still want to hold her at least one last time before I leave. I just want her back. That's what I want. Whatever state she's in, I just want her back.
A family, an irreparable loss. They only have one prayer left. I still want her back. But Joanna Yeates, the vibrant young girl, has disappeared, leaving behind an emptiness that cannot be filled. On December 17th, 2010, in the city of Bristol, a vibrant metropolis in the southwest of England, a residential security camera system recorded the last moments of Joanna Yeates, a 25-year-old girl, a promising young architect. In the CCTV footage, Joanna leaves the small apartment where she lives with her boyfriend. She is holding her dog, a familiar sight in the neighborhood. Her gait is calm, her steps steady, showing no signs of anxiety. It is just a seemingly ordinary winter evening. But no one expected that just a few hours later, the young girl's life would take a dark turn. That simple image became the last evidence before tragedy struck, opening one of the most shocking cases in the UK at that time. Joanna Clare Yeates, 25, is a promising young architect from Bristol. After graduating with a degree in architecture, she quickly found a job at a prestigious design firm where her colleagues described her as dedicated, hardworking, and creative. Her friends described her as friendly, cheerful, approachable, and trustworthy. She lives in a small apartment in the Canninge Road area, Clifton, Bristol, a quiet residential area, considered safe and civilized. Joanna is not married, lives with her boyfriend, but he often goes away on business trips. To her family, Joanna is the pride, the daughter who is loved and trusted by her parents. Therefore, her disappearance and then being found in a tragic state has become an obsession not only for her relatives, but also for the whole community where she lives. Vincent Tabak, 35, a Dutch national, is a civil engineer who works in the field of spatial design. On the surface, Tabak is a well-educated, polite man who many people consider a normal neighbor. He lives in the same building as Joanna Yeates, just a short distance from her apartment. However, behind his seemingly calm exterior, Tabak was a withdrawn, unpredictable man who sometimes displayed strange behavior. He was noted to have signs of psychological instability, especially controlling tendencies and an obsession with women. Tabak and Joanna's relationship was strictly neighborly. They were not close and had no personal or professional relationship. It is this strangeness that makes Tabak's crime all the more puzzling and shocking. Why would an intellectual man, with no grudge against the victim, take the life of a young girl with a promising future? Before the tragedy, Joanna's life was quiet and promising. She spent most of her time working as an architect at a design firm in Bristol. Despite her busy schedule, Joanna maintained a balance in her personal life. She had a close group of friends who she met regularly, dined out, chatted, and shared the small joys of work and everyday life. In the eyes of her colleagues and neighbors, Joanna was a sociable person, not involved in conflicts, and left almost no negative impression. However, she did occasionally mention her discomfort with some of her neighbors, especially the unfriendliness and unusual behavior of some nearby residents. These complaints were not taken seriously at the time because Bristol was considered a safe city, but later, these were details that haunted many people when thinking about her death. In stark contrast to Joanna's outgoing personality, Vincent Tabak was a withdrawn person. Despite his education and a good job in construction, he rarely participated in social activities or connected with his neighbors. Most of the time, Tabak stayed in his apartment with little contact with the outside world. Beneath the quiet intellectual facade, Tabak harbored strange interests and behaviors. He was a note-taker, an observer, and a seemingly obsessive stalker. None of these unusual signs were taken seriously at the time. To his neighbors, he was just a quiet, sometimes aloof man, not enough to raise any alarm. It is this contrast, on one side, a life of innocence, friendliness, and hope, on the other side, isolation, mystery, and obsession, that silently lays the foundation for a bloody tragedy where the fates of two seemingly unrelated people intersect in an unexpected outcome. On 17th December 2010, on a cold winter evening in Clifton, Bristol, Joanna Yeates left her flat to walk her dog. The last image of her was captured on CCTV from a house in the neighborhood. In the video, Joanna appeared normal, walking slowly, without any signs of anxiety or alertness. What she didn't know was that Vincent Tabak, her neighbor, had been secretly watching her every move for days. No one in the community noticed, but for Tabak, that concern had turned into an obsession, silently opening the door to a tragic drama. Tabak was a seemingly calm civil engineer, but his personal life was filled with unusual behavior. He liked to isolate himself, rarely spoke to others, and spent most of his time alone. In the dark, Tabak maintained strange habits, writing in a diary, observing the actions of his neighbors, and collecting trivial details that no one else understood. For Joanna, everything was business as usual. She returned home, went about her daily routine, unaware that danger was lurking nearby, silently growing. The peaceful atmosphere in the neighborhood was like a time bomb, waiting to explode. That evening, after returning from the cafe, Joanna took her dog for a walk and then returned to the apartment. As she was about to enter the house, Vincent Tabak suddenly appeared and approached her. Without warning, he lunged forward, using overwhelming force to subdue her. Joanna struggled, but Tabak quickly tightened his grip on her neck until her body was still. Death came quickly, helplessly and horribly. After the murder, Tabak panicked, but remained coldly calculating. He wrapped Joanna's body in a rug and secretly drove away in his car. His destination was Long Ashton, a remote area about 3 miles from Bristol. There he dumped the body in a wasteland, believing that no one would find it. The act marked the climax of the crime, a moment that transformed Joanna from a young girl full of dreams into the victim of a sick obsession and sparked a major investigation that shocked the whole of Britain. Eight days after her disappearance, on December 25, 2010, just before Christmas, a couple out for a walk accidentally discovered Joanna Yeates' body in the Long Ashton area, about 3 miles from her apartment. The body was wrapped in a rug and dumped on the side of a deserted road. When police arrived on the scene, they quickly determined that the death was not a natural one. Initial signs suggested asphyxiation. The way the body had been disposed of, wrapped and dumped in a remote location, suggested a deliberate, not impulsive act. The case immediately became the focus of attention, not just for Bristol police but for the media across the UK, due to its gruesome nature and timing. Forensic doctors determined Joanna's cause of death to be strangulation. There was no evidence of sexual assault, ruling out rape and murder. This strengthens the case that the killer was motivated by a personal obsession, not a typical sex offender. The Long Ashton area is remote and sparsely populated, especially in winter. The body was wrapped in a rug, but no trace of the killer's personal belongings was found at the scene. The lack of direct evidence complicated the investigation, forcing police to expand their investigation to include surveillance cameras, witness statements, and digital data. Both the crime scene and forensic results revealed a carefully prepared and concealed crime, but also revealed important clues for police to track down the perpetrator. After Joanna's body was discovered, Bristol police launched a full-scale investigation, mobilizing both human and technical resources. They combed the entire residential area, interviewed neighbors, and those who had been in contact with the victim. CCTV footage from around the neighborhood was collected to reconstruct her final journey. At the same time, police analyzed call logs, phone location data, and checked the personal records of those involved. Initially, suspicion fell on Christopher Jeffries, Joanna's landlord. He was detained for questioning because he was believed to be the last person to see her before she disappeared. The media immediately exploited the incident, making Jeffries a suspect in the eyes of the public. However, just a few days later, all charges collapsed when the police found no evidence to link him to the case. Jeffries was released and declared innocent, while the media was heavily criticized for jumping to conclusions. After eliminating the initial suspects, the investigation turned to Vincent Tabak, Joanna's next-door neighbor. Phone records showed that Tabak had been in Long Ashton around the time of her disappearance. Forensic analysis further strengthened the case when Tabak's DNA was found on Joanna's clothing and body. Meanwhile, his inconsistent statements, evasive behavior, and bizarre habits added to the case. A search warrant was issued, and when police entered Tabak's apartment, they discovered a number of key pieces of evidence that matched the crime scene and the way the body was disposed of. From digital data to physical evidence, everything pointed to one conclusion: Vincent Tabak was the man who murdered Joanna Yeates. With that evidence, the police had no doubt and officially arrested Tabak, closing the investigation and opening the way for him to be brought to justice. When brought into the interrogation room, Vincent Tabak quickly admitted that he had strangled Joanna Yeates on the night of December 17, 2010. However, he tried to minimize his responsibility, claiming that it was not a deliberate act of murder but an accident during a fight. Throughout the interrogation, Tabak remained calm, almost cold. He showed no remorse, but tried to explain his actions as an accident. However, Tabak's testimony was not convincing enough against the mass of evidence gathered by the police. Forensic tests showed that his DNA was present on Joanna's body and clothes. Phone records showed that Tabak was in the Long Ashton area at the exact time the body was dumped. In addition, his documents and note-taking habits revealed an unusual obsession, suggesting that this was not a spontaneous act. The pieces came together to form a complete picture. The final investigation file clearly demonstrated Vincent Tabak's direct involvement in Joanna's death. With the full body of scientific evidence and the defendant's contradictory testimony, the police and prosecutors had a strong enough case to put Tabak in court, preparing for the trial stage. Vincent Tabak's trial at Bristol Crown Court in 2011 attracted intense public and press attention across the UK. Tabak was charged with murder, with forensic evidence and investigative data presented to the jury. The prosecution argued that his actions were not random, but a calculated one, as evidenced by his cold-blooded stalking, approach, and disposal of Joanna's body. Throughout the trial, Tabak maintained a calm, at times distant demeanor, as if trying to deny moral responsibility for his crimes. His defense attorneys tried to mitigate the charge by arguing that Tabak had no intent to kill, but DNA evidence, phone records, and inconsistencies in his testimony weakened that defense. The media reported in detail every development in the courtroom, not only focusing on the case itself, but also emphasizing another aspect, the absolute innocence of Christopher Jeffries, who had been wrongly arrested and defamed by the press. His public exoneration was seen as an important step in restoring his honor after the damage caused by the media. The trial ended with a jury finding Vincent Tabak guilty of murder. Tabak's name became synonymous with morbid obsession and cold-blooded cruelty, while the case also left a profound lesson about the responsibility of the press in reporting on criminal cases. Throughout the trial, Vincent Tabak appeared calm, almost indifferent to the crimes he had committed. Not a single tear, not a sincere apology to the victim's family. This attitude further angered public opinion. The defense focused on psychological factors, arguing that Tabak may have been in a state of confusion and could not control his actions at the time of the crime. However, these arguments were quickly dismissed because the investigation records prove the calculation and concealment behind Joanna's death. The trial proceeded in a calm manner, without any surprises or further shocking events. Everything focused on the undeniable truth. Vincent Tabak had taken the life of an innocent young girl and must be held accountable before the law. A jury at Bristol Crown Court sentenced Vincent Tabak to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of decades. The sentence underscores the severity of the law in a crime that involves the deliberate and needless taking of life. The public at the time expressed strong sympathy, believing that the sentence was justice for Joanna Yeates and her family. At the same time, the case also sparked a wave of controversy about the responsibility of the British press. The fact that Christopher Jeffries was arrested and described as a monster by the media before being proven innocent became a costly lesson. The public was not only angry with Tabak, but also harshly criticized the way the media had unintentionally destroyed the reputation of an innocent man. The Joanna Yeates case ended with a harsh sentence, but its repercussions still linger. The pain of the victim's family, the anger of society at a cold-blooded murderer, and a warning to the media about reporting on sensitive criminal cases. The Joanna Yeates case has been closed, but it has left a lasting impression on British society. It has become a bitter reminder that tragedy sometimes comes not from distant threats, but from people who seem closest and most harmless, like a neighbor. Silence and subjectivity cost a young girl her life. Joanna's death has highlighted the need for vigilance in personal life and the need to build a better public safety system. At the same time, the case has also left an important lesson for the media: fairness, responsibility, and caution in reporting, avoiding making innocent people the second victims of public opinion. The image of Joanna Yeates, a young girl full of energy, positive and innocent, has now become a warning symbol. Her story is not only about a murder case, but also inculcates in society the message that safety should never be taken for granted, and that each person needs to be alert to identify potential risks in everyday life.